I'm not a lawyer, but doing a very quick update to my last video to say that after the break, the government stipulated that juror number 18 should be dismissed, so that juror was dismissed. We are still in the process of jury selection. In total, as of now, they have dismissed 5 jurors. Seems like there's still a long way to go. I'm not sure. I'm not feeling confident that we're going to get to opening statements today, but that is the latest. I'll be back.
Lil Durk's federal murder for hire trial just started, and it almost didn't make it past jury selection. Before a single witness took the stand, before prosecutors showed a single piece of evidence, this trial hit a moment that tells you exactly how hard it's going to be to get a fair, impartial jury in a case this high profile. A prospective juror was dismissed after saying something the court could not let slide. So in this video, we're breaking down 3 things: what that juror said and why it mattered, what this case is actually about for anyone just tuning in, and what prosecutors showed the jury on day 1 to try to connect Durk to the alleged plot. Stick around because the evidence presented on day 1 is more detailed than most people realize. Let's get into it. As jury selection dragged on last Friday, one of the prospective jurors was dismissed after telling the court in front of the judge and attorneys that the defendants look guilty. Now, on the surface, that might sound like a small moment, a throwaway comment, but in a federal courtroom, that single sentence is disqualifying, and here's why.
Okay, so I'm here outside the federal courthouse for day 1 of the Lil Durk murder for hire trial. And what is really interesting is that jury selection has begun. So let me give you the update on exactly what's going on. We've just had jury selection. Basically, jury selection is now ongoing. It was a packed courtroom. They've got 80 potential jurors. It sounds like that's probably like, I don't know if I want to say it's unusual, but it sounded like it was kind of on the more heavy side. What's really, really interesting is that obviously they've got so many jurors, they've got so many options, because there's really so much scope for this to go wrong with the jurors. I'm not going to lie. They said straight up to all of the jurors in the courtroom, look, this is about a murder case related to a very well-known rap superstar, like a star. He is a big name. You might have heard of him. All right, they said that they were going to give the jurors a massive questionnaire to try and find out a whole bunch of different things. Now, unfortunately, the media and the public, they're not going to be privy to what's on that questionnaire, so we don't know who's on the witness list. We don't know what was asked on the questionnaire. But what we do know is that it was very big, it was very comprehensive, and apparently what we did hear is that some of the stuff that they are going to be asked is if the jurors are into rap music, if they're into hip-hop, what their relationship is with hip-hop, what their kind of history is, kind of following this kind of case, this kind of coverage, if they've got any knowledge of the judge, of the lawyers, if there's any backstory that kind of, might make them biased, and they've been given that questionnaire. So I thought it was going to be a longer day today. They ended up ending it after sort of half a day. They've given those instructions to the jury, they've given out those questionnaires, and those jurors are going to come back tomorrow, and then we're basically going to hear from the lawyers. We're going to determine basically whether or not, some of the jurors are going to be excluded. What was really interesting is they said that they're basically, by the end of tomorrow, they need to have turned 80 jurors into 16.
In the American legal system, especially at the federal level, jurors are required to presume innocence before they hear a single piece of testimony or a single exhibit. That presumption of innocence isn't just a nice phrase, it's the entire foundation the trial is built on. A juror who states out loud during jury selection that they already believe the defendants are guilty has just told the court they cannot fulfill that requirement. There's no walking that back. Once it's said, that juror is done. It's an automatic disqualifier, and the judge doesn't really have a choice in the matter. So why is this worth talking about? Not because it's scandalous, it's not. It's because it's a signal. It tells you how hard it's going to be to seat 12 impartial jurors for a case that has already been covered extensively, discussed online, and connected to some of the biggest names in hip-hop. When a case reaches this level of visibility before it even starts, jury selection itself becomes a genuine obstacle, not just a formality. We'll likely see more moments like this before opening statements even begin. That's just the reality of high-profile trials. But this is the first real friction point, and it's worth understanding before we move into what the case is actually about. If you're just now hearing about this case, here's the recap. No speculation, just what's been reported and what's part of the public record. Lil Durk, real name Durk Banks, was arrested in October 2024. He's accused of placing a bounty on rival rapper Quando Rondo, whose legal name is Tyquan Bowman. Prosecutors allege that Durk orchestrated a 2022 attempted murder. According to their case, associates connected to Durk opened fire on a vehicle Bowman was traveling in. Bowman survived. His cousin, Sevier Robinson, known as Lil Pob, did not. The alleged motive prosecutors have laid out is retaliation. Back in 2020, Durk's close friend and longtime collaborator, King Von, was killed. Prosecutors' theory is that the 2022 shooting was retaliation tied back to that loss. Durk has pleaded not guilty. He denies the allegations. That matters, and we're going to keep saying it throughout this video because this is an active federal case and nothing has been decided by a jury yet. It's also worth noting just how long this case has been building. It's been delayed multiple times since the 2024 arrest, largely because of how complex the case is. Multiple co-defendants, extensive digital evidence, and pretrial motions that took time to resolve. The trial finally got underway on August 20th, 2026, nearly 2 years after the initial arrest.
Banks' arrest comes just weeks after he was named in a lawsuit which alleges the rapper had a hand in a 2020 gang-related deadly shooting of a Chicago rapper, FBG Duck, born Carlton Weekly. Weekly was killed in the Gold Coast neighborhood by a group of masked men as he waited to enter a high-end store. 6 purported gang members were convicted of carrying out Weekly's murder. Weekly's mother spoke with ABC7's Karen Jordan after filing the lawsuit.
Not a day goes by that I don't think about him and the life that was taken from him.
That timeline matters because it tells you this isn't a case prosecutors threw together quickly. Whatever they present, they've had almost 2 years to build it.
Now let's get into the actual evidence, because day one gave us a real look at how prosecutors are planning to build their case.
First, surveillance footage. Prosecutors presented footage connecting Durk to the shooting, specifically footage involving 2 rental vehicles that are allegedly linked to the incident. Surveillance footage like this is usually a foundational piece in cases like this. It's not about a single dramatic image, it's about establishing a timeline, a location, and a pattern that other evidence can then be layered onto. Second, GPS data. Prosecutors introduced GPS information, along with speed and directional data from one of those vehicles. This is the kind of evidence that sounds technical, but it's often some of the most persuasive material in a case like this, because it doesn't rely on witness memory or interpretation. It's a digital record of where a vehicle was, how fast it was moving, and in what direction at a specific point in time. If that vehicle's movement lines up with the timeline of the shooting, that's a significant piece of the puzzle for prosecutors. Third, and this...
You don't want to say shout out to my fans, but I don't like calling my fans fans. I like calling them family. So shout out to my family, supporting me. Being there for me. I'm reading y'all letters. If y'all think I'm getting them, I'm getting them. I responded to a few. I don't know if they got out. But I appreciate y'all for being on Team Schmirk, 1,000%. My mental good. Y'all ain't got to worry about me. I'll be home soon. Let's get it. Free the voice so you can free the world.
Specifically, there's going to be like 12 jurors that are, the main jurors, then there's going to be 4 alternates. And what was really fascinating was that they kind of explained like some of the backstory as far as, what things they're allowed to find out, what they're not. They're not allowed to get their addresses, but they are allowed to find out, what area they stay in from Los Angeles, what their professions are, who they live with. They said, we need to find out if you guys live with a music executive, if you live with somebody in law enforcement, if you're kind of, just anything along the lines that might make you tainted in this context. And I do have a feeling that there is...
This is the piece that connects the dots back toward Durk personally, flight records. Prosecutors say they have flight records that were allegedly purchased using an American Express card connected to Durk. Alongside that, they introduced a rental home booking in Encino that was reportedly signed by Durk's manager, Ola Ali. Think about what that combination is trying to establish. It's not just someone committed a crime. It's an attempt to draw a financial and logistical thread, travel, lodging, and who paid for it, that prosecutors will argue ties back to Durk and his inner circle, not just the people who were allegedly on the ground. And notably, Durk's inner circle was present in the courtroom for all of this. His girlfriend, India Royale, was there, so was his father. Fellow rapper G Herbo was also present. That's worth mentioning not because it means anything legally, but because it tells you the level of personal and industry support surrounding Durk as this trial gets underway. So to summarize day one, surveillance placing vehicles at the scene, GPS data tracking movement, financial records tying travel to Durk's card, and a property booking tied to his manager. That's the foundation prosecutors are building on. Whether it holds up is what the rest of this trial is going to test.
Now, here's the bigger context, and I want to be careful to just lay this out rather than editorialize too hard. This case doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits alongside a pattern we've seen in a handful of other recent high-profile cases where prosecutors have leaned on an artist's public persona, lyrics, or industry connections as part of building their narrative. The Young Thug and YSL case is the most obvious recent comparison, a case that became a national conversation about how far prosecutors can go in using an artist's creative work and public associations as evidence. That comparison isn't just commentary from the outside either. It's showing up in the actual legal strategy here. Durk's defense has brought on attorney Brian Steele, the same attorney who represented Young Thug throughout the YSL trial. That's not a random hire. Steele built a reputation specifically around fighting the use of lyrics and public image as evidence in criminal trials. And bringing him onto this case signals that Durk's legal team expects prosecutors to lean into that same kind of narrative. And they want someone in the room who's already fought that exact battle before. So beyond the specifics of this case, what we're really watching is another chapter in a bigger, ongoing legal conversation. How much of an artist's public life, their affiliations, and their creative output can legitimately be used against them in a criminal trial? That question is bigger than any one case, and it's part of why this trial is getting so much attention.
So where does this leave us? Jury selection alone has already shown how difficult it's going to be to seat an impartial panel. Day one gave prosecutors a chance to lay out surveillance, GPS, and financial evidence they say ties Durk to the alleged plot. And the defense has already signaled, through who they've hired, exactly what kind of fight they're preparing for. The trial is expected to run several weeks, so we're going to be tracking it closely as new testimony comes out. If you want to stay on top of this one without wading through speculation and rumor, subscribe now. We'll have the next update as soon as there's real news to report, not before. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.